You're at the beginning of your jazz guitar journey and need cheap but good equipment? Look no further, this is the video for you. I'll show you what types of jazz guitars, amps, strings and accessories there are and give you specific recommendations, and you also get to hear a lot of the equipment shown. My name is Sandra Sherman and I simplify jazz for you. We basically have two kinds of jazz guitars, semi-acoustics and hollow body archtop guitars. Semi-acoustics or semi-hollow body guitars are usually thinner and have a so-called center block. That's a block of wood below the top that goes from the neck to the end of the body. This center block stabilizes the body, reduces feedback on stage and creates better sustain. That's why it's also called a sustain block. Hollow body guitars, on the other hand, don't have such a sustain block. They're completely hollow, and most jazz hollow bodies are actually archtop guitars. That means that the top and also often the back is curved. They're usually much thicker in size compared to their semi-acoustic sisters. Let's start with archtop guitars because they are the epitome of the jazz sound and haptics. The first guitar I want to introduce you to is the Ibanez AF75 for around $450. Ibanez is known for their great build quality, even in low-priced guitars. The AF75 is a 16-inch sized guitar and a fat 9 cm body depth, a real jazz box for sure. All Ibanez guitars have very playable thin to medium necks, which makes them the perfect instruments for beginners or people with smaller hands. This neck is no different. It has the standard specs for jazz guitars, although it's a little slimmer. Ibanez also offers this model in a smaller body size that runs by the name AG75. Generally, the AF series are the larger sized models and the AG series is a bit smaller. That's great for smaller persons, women or people coming from solid body guitars. Both of them have top-mounted Ibanez Elite pickups that can sound a bit dull to experienced ears. If you want to level up your game a bit, get the AF95, which I'm holding in my hands right now, for around $650, and I'm going to be playing it for you in a second. The 95 series comes with the superb sounding Super 58 humbuckers. The AF95 model has a spruce top, while the AF95 FM has a stunning look with its flamed maple top and all gold hardware. I recommend the spruce top model. It's cheaper, although it has the spruce top, which has better sustain. Now let me play this beautiful AF95 with the spruce top for you. For a systematic approach to jazz guitar, check out my jazz starter packs. The link is in the video description or bio. If you come from an acoustic guitar and aren't used to the narrow jazz guitar necks, you may prefer the Godin 5th Avenue Kingpin IIHB. The Godin has a bit wider neck and a flatter fretboard radius. While the standard is around a 12-inch radius, the Godin has a 16-inch radius, which feels more like an acoustic guitar. Another great buy is the Sire Larry Carlton H7F for around $800. It's an all-maple body with a mahogany neck. Sire always has superbly rounded frets, so you won't hurt yourself from fret sprout. These are great instruments and worth checking out. And my last archtop guitar recommendation is the Epiphone Broadway. This one's already scratching the $1,000 mark, which was my limit for this review. With its large body and the 25.5-inch scale length, it's best for taller players. The Broadway has a spruce top, which is great for sustain, and maple sides and back. The neck is a slim 60 C-shaped neck and very comfortable to play. The entire hardware is vintage spec'd, targeting towards the extremely expansive classic Gibson L5 or L4. Now let's look at some best value semi-acoustic jazz guitars. They are usually thin and come in all sizes. They are also referred to as thin line models. One of the classic shapes is the Gibson ES-335 model. These are pretty large instruments with a 16.5-inch body width and around 19-inch length. They're usually only 1.75-inch deep. These guitars are suitable for taller persons. Sire has a superb Larry Carlton model, the H7, for around $700 that I already reviewed. The H7 comes in two versions, one with classic humbuckers, the other with P90 single coils. Humbuckers have the typical jazz sound, while P90s have more of the early Charlie Christian-like jazz sound that's crispier and not as dark. Of course, you can also choose the Gibson subsidiary Epiphone ES-335 that currently sell for $600 to $700 depending on the color. You have more colors to choose from than with the Sire range. However, Epiphone's quality control can vary greatly. If you're smaller or prefer smaller bodied guitars, the Ibanez GB10EM could be the perfect choice for you. That's the cheapest of the three George Benson GB10 models at around $700. The body is only 14.5-inch wide, but 2.6-inch deep. We have floating mini humbuckers, which means the pickups aren't mounted to the top, but on a neck and pickguard. That provides great sustain. I reviewed this guitar already. Here's a little sound clip from that video. I put a link to the entire video up here. I can highly recommend the entire Ibanez George Benson lineup. They have great build quality at very reasonable prices. If you prefer a smaller sized guitar, the D'Angelico Mini DC might be just what you're looking for. This here is my very own one, although it's the more expensive deluxe model, but it's also available in the cheaper series I've mentioned before. Here's a clip from my review of this guitar. Please help to keep the free video tutorials running, and you can do so by clicking the thanks button and donate a little something. Thank you. Of course, you need a jazz guitar amp as well. With a dedicated jazz amp, you don't need to fiddle around with the knobs too much. They have a great jazz sound out of the box. Unfortunately, most of them are really expensive. One of the cheapest yet best jazz sounds comes from the DV Mark Little Jazz and his bigger brother, the Jazz 12. They both share the same preamp that has a power of 60 watts. The Little Jazz has an 8-inch speaker, while the Jazz 12 has a 12-inch speaker. They are not that different. The Little Jazz is more focused and better for band playing or at home practicing, while the Jazz 12 has definitely more bass and sounds better for solo gigs. I already made a review about the best jazz amps. Here's a sound clip from the DV Mark Jazz 12. Another good and extremely cheap recommendation, although not a dedicated jazz amp, is the Roland Cube 10GX. This is a digital modeling amp that simulates different amp models. It works together with a phone app that allows you to download different amp models and transfers it from your phone to amp. There are 3 standard models in the amp already, so you don't necessarily need to use the phone app, but I highly recommend you to download the black panel amp model. That one models a Fender Blackface tube amp, which are known for their fat, clean sounds. I personally used this amp with that amp model for students. The most asked question in the comment section is what strings I use and recommend. We have 3 types of strings: round wounds, half round wounds, and flat wounds. Round wounds are the regular strings you know from solid body electric guitars. They are brighter, have more sustain, but produce a lot of unwanted playing noise and have the shortest lifespan of the 3. Flat wounds don't produce that handling noise, but have less sustain, less attack, and a darker sound. That's why they're preferred in jazz. They also last very long. Half round wound strings are a happy medium, but are rarer and more expensive. Personally, I use Thomastik infield strings. They are made in Austria, just like me, and they are affordable in Europe but expensive in the US and everywhere else in the world. I'll give you a recommendation for the US too in a bit. The Thomastik Bebop series are round wound strings. What makes them special is their very mellow jazz sound. And of course they also have flat wound strings, which they named Swing. Flat wounds are very easy to play and won't hurt your fingers. These are also super mellow and last very long. I play gauge 12 strings, and I recommend gauge 11 or 12 for beginners. You can later try higher gauges like 13s. They sound a little fatter and have better intonation. If you live in the US or Canada, check out the Daria EJ and Chrome series. They are cheaper there, but more expensive in Europe. The EJ series is cheaper, while the Chromes are the Darius dedicated jazz strings. Personally, I don't like them as much because they take a long time until they don't sound metallic anymore. After they're broken in, they sound almost like the Thomastik infields. And the last chapter in this, guys, are essential accessories. Let's start with jazz picks first. Jazz picks are usually very thick. We're talking about 1.5 to 3 millimeter here. You need control, and thin picks don't give you control because they bend easily. Off they go. Also, if you get stuck between strings in the beginning, your technique is not correct. With fat picks, you'll learn to hold your pick more loosely. There are 2 main sizes, the regular sized ones and the minis. Here are some regular sized ones I recommend. The regular Dunlop Gator Grip 1.5 millimeter is available everywhere in the world and perfect for beginners. Also try out the big stubby 2 or 3 millimeters because they glide through the strings super smoothly. As for the smaller sized mini picks, the standard is the Dunlop Jazz 3 pick. They are 1.38 millimeter thick, which I find pretty thin. In my review on alternatives in the Jazz 3 size, I found the Ernie Ball Prodigy 2 millimeter to be perfect. These are the picks I now use exclusively. There are so many more great jazz picks available that I cannot mention them all here. But since picks are really cheap, you can get yourself a variety pack of jazz picks. You're also gonna need a Realbook. A Realbook has the sheet music of the most popular jazz standards. There are officially licensed Realbooks and illegal Fakebooks. Unfortunately, the official Hall Leonard Realbook isn't the best, but it's the most used Realbook at sessions, and therefore you may consider buying volume 1 of the 6th edition. An official alternative is the new Realbook by Share Music. It has some modern fusion and jazz-like songs in there as well. The amount of real jazz standards is not too big, unfortunately. Check out the Gig Book, also known as the Blue Book, or the 557 Jazz Standards book that is very popular here in Europe. They're not officially licensed books, but song compilations that some random guys assembled, and they're called Fakebooks. These come in only 1 volume, not 3, and feature the real popular standards. Also, the chords are way more accurate than in the official Realbook. Check out my Jazz Gear Reviews playlist here on YouTube for more reviews and guides like this one. I hope my jazz gear guide helps you getting started with jazz guitar. My channel has hundreds of jazz tutorials for beginners. I'd be happy to guide you on your jazz journey. All you need to do is subscribe, and please give this video a fat thumbs up because it's really important for me as a creator. Visit my lesson shop GuitarVersum.com for mini courses and song lessons, and I hope to see you next week. Servus, bye bye.